Okay, it's time to get serious again, which is why we're starting this Monday, February 3rd at, I think it's almost 11 o'clock. That's when you want to start your Monday. So, we are going to start the shop improvement project. Ooh, exciting. So, I'm just going to pretend you didn't watch the shop clean out project. The shop improvement project should be more interesting, and there should be fewer steps to get to interesting things happening. So, in order for the shop improvement project to truly begin, we actually have to finish cleaning the shop up, which, take a good look at what you see here. I would not call this cleaned up. Nobody in their right mind would call this cleaned up, and some of you might be wondering, well, why didn't you throw this at the end of the shop cleanout series? Well, because the goal of the shop cleanout series was to get the Pontiac out of this spot, which we did, and somebody immediately made a mess all over the floor. How dare they? But to get the shop actually fixed to where it's technically usable right now, just not very well. Technically, it was usable with the Pontiac in here. But we're going to make it more usable than ever, which means all this stuff that you see here cannot be here. We need to do stuff with the walls. We need to put in real electricity instead of whatever that is from 70 years ago. And we need to just kind of upgrade things and change things around so that we can actually pull a vehicle in here and do something, because there's a lot of serious work that needs to be done around here. Believe it or not, we do serious things. So, all the stuff that you see here, and I mentioned this in the shop cleanout series, it all needs to go in that storage building. But in order for all this to go in that storage building, the storage building has to be empty. And the storage building, as I said in the shop cleanout series, is completely full, top to bottom and front to back. So all that has to go somewhere. Well, where's it going to go? It's going to go in a storage trailer that we still have to get. And unfortunately, that storage trailer requires a semi to get it and bring it back here. It's like a 53-foot long dry van trailer. And we have a truck, we just haven't gotten it yet, and we're going to do that at some point. And when we do, when we go to get stuff, it's going to be a whole production, and I'm not going to be putting out a lot of videos for that period because it's just going to be go, 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 And since we're in February, it's time to get a fire lit under our rear ends and get to moving. So, when we get the storage trailer here, it does need a little work. I think we'll know more when we get it here. I think that mulberry tree's dead. I don't think it's going to come back. Anyway, the point is, we're thinking, I don't know that this is certain, but we're thinking about putting the storage trailer right in this area here. Okay? And even if we don't end up doing that, this needs to be cleaned up anyhow. So when the trailer does go here, it's going to be very difficult to get this old tractor out of the cedar trees. Now, I don't remember if I've ever shown this on the channel or not. I don't think I have. I think I've mentioned it. This is an old Twin City 2132 FTA. And we'll go over this more once I get it out of here, which, shocker, this is the goal of today's video, if you couldn't tell by the thumbnail and the title. But there's the tag. So this is technically a Moline. They just use the Twin City name and a lot of the numbers. And we'll talk about that when we get it out of here. So it's buried. Quite a bit. Actually, like a lot. Oh, that's worse than I thought. Okay. So the goal here is to get this out, and we're going to put it over in the graveyard with the rest of the cool equipment. It's going to sit next to the Pontiac. That's the graveyard. So that's the goal of today's video. We can get this tree cut up. I'm apparently going to have to dig around the front axle so I can get a chain around it. We'll get the skid steer. We'll pull it out. We'll get it out of the way where we can actually I might even hook onto it with the bale loader on the Ford there and pull it. That might be easier than the skid steer, and I don't want to listen to that backup alarm all day. Right, Punky? Kitty, 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 kitty. Look who came out to help us. Why are you dirty? Hey, you're dirty. Did you know that? Did you? So, anyway, yeah, that is the goal of today's video. I don't know how long that's going to take, but it's supposed to be 75 today, and then it's supposed to be like 50 tomorrow. So, probably ought to get started on that. So, I'm curious. All right, cat. I'm gonna do something that's gonna scare you. All right. I wonder I wonder what the chances are that this thing just fires up. What do you think? No. Come on. Now that's pretty impressive. You know, that thing always impresses me that it will start, you know, that's sat for, I don't know, 3 months. And it just fired right up. More or less, it fired right up. So now that that's done, that's a big deal. That's a big step right there. Now we need this chainsaw. We need this chainsaw because apparently it's hard to cut trees otherwise. I have an axe, but I'm not feeling that energetic today. It's Monday, remember? You know, I really like these Poulan chainsaws. This one's pretty nice. I haven't used it probably as much as it should be used, but that's what usually happens with farm chainsaws, is they get used for like 5 minutes and then put away for 5 years. This is cheaper than a Stihl. That's mainly why we have it, but it's actually a pretty good saw. And oddly enough, Tractor Supply carries Poulan parts, which is impressive. Now, I know you're supposed to clean the bar and everything before you put it away, but I can't remember if I did that or not, so I'm going to double check before we get too far ahead of ourselves here. Oh, yeah, that's good. That's what we call good enough. There's something I learned with this. I think this is a 50-20 Poulan, but something I learned is that if you don't get these clutch cover bolts on there really tight, they will back off, or the nuts, I mean, they will back off. And I almost caused a pretty serious accident, because on previous chainsaws we didn't really have to worry about it all that much. There was such a thing as getting them too tight, but on this Poulan, you got to be careful with that. If you don't get them tight enough, they will come off, and that's bad. And I'm glad I caught it before something bad happened. Come on. Still needs more. That's probably fine. Yeah, normally I just don't like to tighten stuff this much, but you got to on this. Okay. Whew. It's not bad on fuel, and it puts out plenty of oil. I think this is the original chain yet, so that should tell you how much we cut with it. But it's going to need sharpened after today. Cedar likes to hold a lot of dirt. Stupid safety gas cans. I spill more fuel with these stupid safety cans than I would have with an older style can. Set the gas can in the shade. We'll pretend to care. It might be a little warm today, but by golly, it's going to be a pretty nice day, I think. We're going to make this just the greatest thing ever. Something else I've noticed, this saw is really bad if you do not run it for a long time. It takes forever to get it primed back up all the way. And I do mean forever. But that's part of the reason I try and run it every once in a while. But it should be ready. Let's go cut some trees. Just a couple more revolutions on that chain and I would have cut through where I wanted, but the saw died. So I guess, because I'm almost done anyway, we'll just do it the hard way. Oh, it doesn't want to do it the hard way. It wants to do it the really hard way, naturally. Well, that was embarrassing. That axe might be dull. Nope. Oh, thank goodness the wind came up a little bit. It's gonna get too warm for this white boy today. 75 is too hot. It needs to stay at like 60 to 65. So now that we got some sun on it, probably the first real sun it's seen on it and who knows how long, we can see it better. It's actually not in as bad a shape as you would think. Thankfully, they put a hole right here. I don't know if they intended for that to be used for like a clevis or something, but that's probably what it's going to get used for. So we're going to try that because I don't want to dig out around this front axle. I'm not going to lie to you. And I didn't trim more because that's how the limbs are shaped. And so I'd have to stand on top of this with a chainsaw to cut all this stuff down, and I don't really feel like doing that. I'm not ready to shake hands with danger today. We'll do that another day in a different way. But yeah, so with the Twin City opened up, get a little bit better walk around of it. We'll go over it in detail towards the end of the video. So it's almost lunchtime, so I'm gonna go eat like a really big dinner, and then I'm gonna drag all these limbs off to the burn pile and move a couple things. We'll see if we can't yank this out of here. Well, of course the wind came up because, well, why not? I actually wanted to film a lot of this project and have some good clips to use, but Mother Nature said no. I'm not going to complain too much because it is hot. I'm already sweating and I haven't done anything. Let's get these limbs out of here, and then we'll see if I have a clevis or something that'll fit in that front pin hole, because that'd be really nice to use that to pull this out of here. That looks strong enough, don't you think? I mean, yeah, they don't really give you a lot of room to work, but that's okay. We'll find something that'll go in there. I don't want to dig this out. So I was gonna move all the limbs out of the way because there's quite a few, but then I got to looking, and I don't need to. I don't need to move all those limbs. Well, I don't think so. So we're gonna see if my laziness I can go ahead and get by with it. We're gonna see if that'll happen. Thankfully, the clevis I wanted to use fits. Now it is upside down, yeah, but it'll fit. I'm gonna go get the skid steer. Got the big old nice heavy chain, not cheaping out with the spinning chain. And I'll see if I can get this thing pulled free. All right. Since I can drive this skid steer one-handed, we'll see if I can pull this out of here. What do you think? Oh, of course that chain came loose. Darn it! All right, let's try it again. Oh yeah, okay, it's gonna come out. Uh-oh. Come on, you dead weight. Come on! Hope we're not backing into anything. Oh. Are we about to? Oh no, we're good. Okay, it doesn't like that. Man, that thing's heavy. Clear the post. Oh, that tire's gonna hold air. Oh yeah, she's a roller, boys. Oh yeah, it's not even that bad. I'm really impressed that this thing is rolling. Now, it doesn't, I mean, these are not helping. The front tires wanting to come off, that's not good. I got a plan to get around that, because I'm not dragging this thing with the skid steer going backwards. No, we're not going to do that. It does not want to turn. That's a little bit challenging right there. But that's okay. We'll fix that. So I don't know exactly how long this thing sat here, but it sat here for a while. And I was expecting this tree to grow a root through one of the rear wheels, but it didn't. But it sat here for a while. Not as bad as I thought it would be. A lot of this is just from rodents and stuff building up over the years. The soil, I mean, because there's nothing that washes to this point, but there's also nothing that washes away from this point. But because it's in this tree line, all this stuff is real loose here, so it's no surprise it's sunk in when the tires went flat. But it's not as bad as it might look on camera. So I'm actually kind of impressed with it. Now, the transmission seized and stuff like that. I know that. People are probably going to wonder if I made sure it was in neutral, and the answer is no. Because if it wasn't in neutral, that was just tough, because I was going to drag it. But I am glad that it rolls, because I did not want to have to pick this thing up somehow and do it that way, because this is like a 7,000 pound tractor. And it's got weights on it. So, we're going to drag this thing back a little bit further, and then we're going to hook onto it with the Ford and the bale loader, and we're going to see if we can pull it that way, kind of like a tow truck, and we'll pull it around where it's supposed to go. But I don't really want to run this thing backwards for two reasons. Number one, that's annoying. And number two, if the cows hear this thing beeping, they'll come up and expect food, which isn't so much a problem in general, but they'll be in the way. And I don't really want them in the way because they don't pay attention and they don't want to move. You know how cows are. Maybe you don't. That's how they are. So let's do a little more and see if the Deweys will pick this thing up. All right. We need, it's hot outside. Got that out of the way so I don't bump it and accidentally turn the bail loader on. All right. Tire's good anymore. That was a heavy tire too. Okay. All right. Let's see if that'll pick up. I guess it only squatted about as much as it would with a bale. Tires aren't squishing too bad, that's what matters. So I guess, well, we'll find out pretty quick if it's gonna do anything or not. Oh, they were already locked in. Okay, that's probably why this was driving so weird the other day. Yeah, we're gonna need 4x4 because, well, it's picking up. It's a lot of weight. That tractor's not light at all. And oh, I just cleaned it. Now look what it's doing. It's just spilling hydraulic fluid everywhere. Oh well. But we seem to be doing okay. Now I did notice I was getting a little happy here because I had to turn pretty sharp to get around this corner here. So I'll try and be more careful with that in the next little bit here, but I didn't bend anything too much. Even though this thing has sat and rusted and all that, I don't want to tear it up more because I do want to restore it. That would be really cool. But plan is we're going to take it all the way around the grain auger and into the lot that way, and then we'll see what happens. We may have to switch to the skid steer in the lot, but right now this is a lot easier than using the Kubota. Oh boy, it's a lot of work, you know. Well, that's still tight. We'll let it down a little bit more. Oh, there we go. You know, I'm always impressed with this old Dewey's. I really am. So we'll disconnect all this stuff and hook it back up in there. Same thing over here. And then we'll have to finish moving it with the skid steer. Oh, come on. There we go. That's better. All right. Yeah, we'll have to finish moving it with the skid steer, but dang it. There. That's okay. We got it this far. That was a lot easier using the pickup than it would have been with the Kubota. So, I'm trying to decide if I want to put it in front of the Pontiac, and I'm pretty sure I do. There's a pretty good spot right there that I think will work out just fine. We'll put it kind of right here. That'll be a good spot for it, I think. It's not going to be in the way of anything there, and yeah. So I'll go get the Kubota and we'll finish moving it in. We'll call this a video. Well, it's a couple days later now. Most of the video that you guys just saw here was that was Monday the 3rd, and it was warm and windy. And then yesterday, Tuesday, it got cold and wet, and today is Wednesday, and it's still cold and wet, but it's not as cold, and the wind's not blowing as hard. So I was gonna finish this all up on Monday, and I was doing the walk around of this to finish up that video. And then what I was doing is checking stuff out to make sure my figures were correct. And I was getting a whole bunch of stuff wrong in that walk around. And I'm not a peddler of false information on purpose, you know. So I thought I'd come out here, even though it kind of sucks, and I'd do a better walk around of it. And then I'll probably cut this part off and make a separate video just for the people that don't want to watch the whole moving of this tractor. So before we do that, I will mention that, okay, yes, I did tear that rim up, but let's be real, there was not really much left of that anyway, because I just bumped it a little bit and it was not happy with life. So make of that what you will. This thing sucked to move. I'm not going to lie to you. It sucked to move. It did not want to go straight. It did not want to roll. It did not want to cooperate. And I got a little aggressive with it towards the end there. And so it is about where I want it. But it's not great. And yeah, see, this rim is just, it's toast. There's nothing left. Poor thing. I don't think that tire's any good either. And I swear I saw on this tire, I'm almost certain it said Gillette on this tire. I think we can see it right here, actually. Sure enough, it says Gillette, the best a man can get. I don't know about that. This tire's not holding up very good. Cheap American junk, you know what I'm saying? So, anyway, yeah, it did not want to move. Now, the other reason, actually the bigger reason I came out here, I'm not going to lie to you, I want my clevis back, and I was going to take it out, and it didn't want to cooperate, so I brought a hammer and a punch this time, and it's going to come out whether it wants to or not. And then another day, I will come out here and block this up. Okay, I promise. I've got another smaller tractor that needs to come over here. And when I bring it over here, I'll take the time and get some blocks and I'll get this thing blocked up. But for now, let us do a walk around. I even took notes. All right, what we have here is a 2132 FTA Minneapolis Moline / Twin City tractor, inline 4, and I took notes because I am a smart guy and I double check my figures so that if I can unfold my paper here without dropping it, we can actually get to all the important information, and I won't be spreading false information because we don't want to do that. Okay. So this tractor has serial number 155403, and look, I pull a lot of my information from Tractor Data. I will put links down below, not just to Tractor Data for this machine, but also for the original 2132, and there's also a website about Twin City tractors that has some cool information that you might find interesting, and I'll put all that down below. Also, in case anybody was curious, I do have the books for this. I have the original instruction book and the original parts book. They are in rough shape. I plan on scanning them in and reprinting them so that I don't have to keep risking tearing up those old books even more, because they're pretty rough. You got to be delicate with them. So anyway, the serial number on this, like I said, 155403. This is one of the few tractors around here, especially older machines, that has a serial number tag that's actually intact. So just in case you guys think I'm screwing with you, there you go. There's the serial number. According to Tractor Data and the serial number table, this is a 1936. I did not see an engine tag anywhere. I don't know if they had engine tags on them. or not. But there's an engine number written down on one of those books. I don't know if it's the correct one or not. The people that used to reference those regularly around here, they had a bad habit of just writing down critical information on whatever they could find, which is why I have a whole box full of folded up envelopes, because they would write down all kinds of important stuff on there. They didn't care. Just, whatever was handy. Pretty sure a lot of people did that. But anyway, back to the point. This tractor's rated for 21 horsepower on the drawbar and 32 horsepower on the belt. I do not know if we have the belt drive for this or not. I don't think so. I don't know if it had a belt pulley on it at one time. I do know that it came from the factory with steel wheels. I don't have those steel wheels. That was one of the few things that got scrapped around here, was the steel wheels for the Twin City. Oh no, we're not going to scrap anything else. I don't know. Why would they do that? Why would we scrap half-broken bolts and bent sickle bars? Oh no, we're not going to do that, but we'll scrap the steel wheels off of the Twin City. Okay. Again, I digress. Back to the point. It's rated for 21 drawbar and 32 belt horsepower. As is the case with a lot of tractors of that era, that is horribly inaccurate, because this particular tractor tested actually gets 35.2 horsepower on the drawbar and 44.7 horsepower on the belt. That is a Nebraska tractor test. You should be able to see that in the tractor data article of this machine. Okay, we're going to have to do a little history lesson here as to the nomenclature and branding of this particular tractor. And okay, if one of you sees this Pontiac back here, I have a couple of separate videos about it. I will link, there's a playlist, I'll put a link to it down below. I am going to keep that car, and one of these days I will restore it. The same applies for this tractor. So, Twin City was its own line of tractors produced by Minneapolis Steel and Machinery. And originally they built steam tractors and other stuff. And Minneapolis Moline, which was formed in 1929, was formed between three companies. The Moline Plow Company, which made not just plows, but all sorts of other implements as well. They had the Flying Dutchman line of implements. The Minneapolis Threshing Machine Company, and the Minneapolis Steel and Machinery Company, which made the Twin City tractors here. So all three of those companies formed together in 1929 to form Minneapolis Moline, which we know and love. So for the first few years of Moline's history, they went ahead and continued to produce this 2132. They rebranded it as the FTA. It got a few horsepower upgrades, a couple changes in the transmission, I believe. And they kept that dual branding until 1938, which was the last year for the FTA. The FTA was built between 1935 and 38. The original Twin City style, just pure Twin City 2132, tractor data says it was produced between 1929 or 1928 and 1938, I'm sorry, but I don't know if that includes the FTA models as well. I'm not sure, but they made around 7,000 units according to what I could find on the internet. So there are a few cool things about this, and it's something I've kind of noticed with Moline. One of the things they like to do is the cylinder jugs, like so. This is a GE, Minneapolis GE engine, which I guess it would be old enough. I suppose you could say it is a Twin City engine. I don't think Moline changed much. My understanding is the original Twin City engines in the original Twin City tractors had a 4.5-inch bore and a 6-inch stroke. Moline upgraded this to a 4 5/8 bore and a 6-inch stroke. That's what this one is right here. And from what I can tell, M&M loves a 4 5/8 bore. A lot of their tractors, I'm almost certain most of their tractors have a 4 5/8 bore. We have a 602 diesel. It's the D336-4, I think is the model number. But it is a 4 5/8 bore by, I think, a 5.5-inch stroke. I don't remember. But it is a 4 5/8 bore, and Moline loves to do that. So this particular engine was used not just in this tractor, it was also used in the GT, GTA, GTB, and GB tractors. And with the GB they rebranded it to the 403C-4 instead of the GE, which is what this engine model is. And then, also with the GTB, it was the 403A-4. So they made a few changes. I couldn't find a lot of information. I think they increased the compression ratio and increased the RPM range, running a little harder. And it wasn't the only engine offered in those tractors. They had some others as well. And then, the point is they kept this engine for quite a while, and I don't think they changed much about it, just based on what I could see. So this tractor will pull, according to the Nebraska test, which is this machine. The test is 1936. So it would be about this machine right here. And it was rated to pull 4,724 pounds, but that's with a distillate engine. So I don't know if it would pull more if you had gasoline instead of distillate fuel. I'm not sure. What I do know is that this tractor it weighs about 7,000 pounds without the weights on it. And third-hand stories from older relatives, primarily my great uncle, he said that they've got 3 weights, I think, on this. 3 weights on this side, and I think they've got 2 on the other, because I've got the third weight. Yeah, there's only 2 on this side. So the third weight that you see here, like is on the outside, that F&H weight, I actually have another one just like it. It's down somewhere else. So I don't know if these were original to the tractor, but I have all the weights to balance both back wheels here. And my great uncle said that this was ballasted and they had weights on the back wheels, and if you could still spin it out. It still didn't always get enough traction. And he said it would pull more or less whatever you put behind it. It would spin before it stalled, which is pretty impressive. That's about what you can expect with these old tractors. Just looking at the gear case back here, those are probably some pretty big bull gears in there, if I had to guess. So pretty impressive on power. I did a little bit of looking on the tractor data for comparable models from other brands, major brands of the same era. So this tractor, in terms of power, and my comparisons here are similar gears, similar horsepower, standard tread tractors, no row crop models, no crawlers. And that really narrowed the list down. So this is comparable to an Alice U 2540 or an A JI Case C, L, or R model, the Oliver 90, the Massey Harris 25 pacemaker, and the McCormick Deering, which is just international. The 2236, W30, W40, and WD40 are all similar to these in horsepower and production years. Most of those tractors I just mentioned were manufactured long after this one was discontinued. And as I kind of inferred earlier, the successor to the FTA is the GT. Moline, just strictly Moline. This was the last tractor to have the Twin City branding. So I think that about covers everything that I wrote down here that is relevant. I do not know if this tractor was purchased brand new. I do not know what... I assume it was, because that Pontiac was also purchased brand new by my great-grandfather. And I don't know what he paid for it, if it was purchased new or used. I have no idea what was paid for this. There's no sale information that I could find. Some intense research would probably turn that up, but I'm not about to do that right now. It's just not a good use of my time. Eventually, we'll figure out about what this thing cost originally. So, a few things that I do know. It has the American Bosch Magneto. Everything is here, more or less. I don't think they made a lot of modifications to it, which is rare for a farm tractor. It's also rare to see a tractor of this vintage, because a lot of these were scrapped during the war. A lot of people scrapped older machines during the war, and that's why you just don't see a heck of a lot from this era, unless they were in use through the war, and a lot of them were. Of course, as you probably noticed, it is hand start. The engine is seized. I am almost certain that it is seized. I don't know if there's any water in the crankcase, but the dipstick is awfully pitted. There's no, if there's liquid in there, it's not enough to touch the dipstick, which is good and also bad. So I don't know what's exactly going on. The transmission is in neutral, thankfully, because it did roll when I was moving it. It didn't like to, but it did roll. The transmission lever is seized. I assume the transmission itself is, well, it must be loose, because even if it was in neutral, some of those gears would have to spin. So there is that. The steering wheel is not stuck, oddly enough. It actually kind of steers, sort of. It doesn't steer all that great with flat tires, but the gearbox isn't seized. That's good. I do not know how much of the fuel system is original, but my understanding is this came with, this was a 2-section tank. This is not the original tank, I'm pretty sure. But it was partitioned off. You had a smaller section for gasoline and then another section for kerosene or power fuel or whatever. And you would start this on gas, you'd get it hot, and then you'd switch it over to kerosene or your power fuel, and it would run on that. So there's supposed to be, and I don't know if this is original or not. I do not believe it is, but I'm not an expert on these. Somebody can correct me if you know more about them. But it's supposed to have a heat box in here somewhere to help keep the incoming air and the fuel warm enough to where it'll burn the kerosene. This might be it. I have some other yellow colored parts around here that are not, they're not for the Cat, they're not for the 602. I'm pretty sure they're for this, because all the old GB parts or GTB parts, there weren't any actually. We used to have a GTB tractor around here back in the day, but that's long since gone. So I'm almost certain those yellow parts that I found are for this Twin City. But again, I don't know that for a fact. It's just information. So, as I said earlier, this did come with steel wheels from the factory. I have some pictures somewhere. They're not scanned in. They're not digital. But I have some pictures somewhere of this thing on steel. And it used to pull, we used to have an old Moline harvester around here too. That was scrapped many, many years ago. So, unfortunately, no, we don't have that. But it used to pull that harvester. And this came in Twin City gray, is my understanding, originally. And then, several years after lots and lots of use, it was sent off to a dealer in Hutchinson. This is via my great uncle, so, may or may not be 100% accurate. But it was sent off to a dealer somewhere, and it was essentially gone through and completely rebuilt and repainted, which is where it gets the yellow color from. But originally, it was Twin City gray on steel. This has been all over the place, apparently. One time, this tractor and the harvester went up to South Dakota to cut wheat. I don't know the details of that. It just something my great uncle had mentioned one time. And I try to pay attention when he's around and he mentions stuff like this, because he just kind of starts in with it randomly, And then, of course, it's hard to hear him, and you can't really talk to him because he doesn't always wear his hearing aids, and I'm sure you guys can understand that. But I try and pick up whatever information I can when I can, and I try to remember it. So, some of you are probably wondering, what's the deal with this? Why was it just left to sit and rot? Well, it wasn't used, and it's much the same story with that Pontiac there. It was running, allegedly, and there was nothing wrong with it, but it wasn't used, so it was parked. And it sat and rotted. So yeah, there's that. That's cool. Rest assured, if I restore this tractor, or I'm not even going to say restore, if I get this thing to where it will run and drive and do, it's not going to sit and rot as long as I'm alive and have something to say about it. I assure you of that. And again, I do want to restore it someday, but I don't know when that's going to be. Not anytime soon. We have other things we need to mess with. But that is the Twin City 2132 tractor. It's hard to tell how much work it's actually going to need because I just don't know what the powertrain looks like. I would assume it's probably sort of okay. It's almost positively got rust on it. There's no way it doesn't. But we'll cross that bridge when we come to it. I do not know if when this tractor was, I'm going to say restored back in the day. I don't know if they redid the drawbar or not. What I can tell you is that drawbar doesn't have a lot of wear on it. So I don't know how much pulling this actually did. I do know that this tractor and the old, another implement we used to have a 4-bottom Moline plow. I don't know if it was a Minneapolis Moline plow or an old Moline plow. But it was a 4-bottom. This would pull it no problem. And we live in red dirt, so when it gets dry and hard and you have to go plow, I mean, it'll make a tractor work. If your tractor's gutless, it'll show almost immediately when you go to plow. But this would, in theory, pull a plow, no problem. So this tractor and the Cat D4 tractor with the blade on the front built all the terraces in the big field. And that field's about 120 acres, I think. And it's hills. I don't know why they farmed that instead of something more flat. That's not a decision I was around for. It was long before my time on this earth. But all the terraces were built with essentially this tractor, that 4-bottom plow, a transit stick, and the D4 Cat. And my grandpa built them all more or less by himself, is my understanding. Of course, that might just be him kind of saying that, you know. But pretty impressive. As with most machines of this vintage, they worked. They were no slouch. They had to work. They ran all day, every day, and rode hard, put away wet. In this case today, quite literally, put away wet. So, oh man, I'm just kind of looking it over and seeing anything that I may have missed. I think it's a good candidate for restoration. I think the transmission is fine. If the engine's shot, that's part of the reason I mentioned all that information about it. They use this engine on so many other tractors, and I think a lot of the parts will cross over and they will cross-reference. But another interesting thing that I like about these older machines like this is that the engine and the transmission are sort of integrated, but they're also sort of not. So I could do a little bit different engine in here if I needed to. It would take some modification, but look, if it gets that bad, parts are going to be hard to find, and we may have to do some things that are not factory original. In that scenario, I could put a different engine in here, fashion some motor mounts and stuff, keep it as close to original as possible, but adapt another motor in because of the way the clutch and stuff is set up, which I like. I like options. I don't know if I can save these wheels. I think the rear wheels I can save, maybe. I'd like to, because even though this is a goofy design right here with the spokes, I think it's kind of cool, and I would like to keep it original. May not be able to. May have to convert over to a modern hub style. The fenders are going to need some work. The hood's going to need some work. But this is one of the things I love about these old tractors, is that they are not picky. A lot of this stuff was hand-fitted, hand-finished, and handmade. So, you know, my amateur metalworking skills will probably pass just as good as what the factory did back in the day. So, with all that being said, I'm going to get that clevis off because I want it back. And I'm going to go back in because it's actually kind of cold out here, even though the wind's not blowing. My hand's getting numb. So I appreciate you guys watching. One of these days we'll come back to this and start on it. I don't know when, but it's going to be a while. So until then, you guys take care, stay warm. We'll see you later. Thanks for watching.